Welcome to my live video in Substack. Thank you for showing up whenever you show up today, or if you watch the live recording. Today, I wanted to just first check in with you a little bit, ask you how you are, ask you how your summer's going, what have you been doing, and share with you a little bit about what I've been doing as well. So I have just I've just gotten home from my daughter's wedding. That was the big highlight. I had two weddings. My goddaughter's wedding was the first thing I went to in Sweden, which was really beautiful. Incredible ceremony, incredible reception, just an amazing celebration of young love. And then I traveled with my partner, Rennie, for about 4 weeks. We had such a fun time just traveling all over Europe, going to all different places, and then landing in Provence for my daughter's wedding. So it was beautiful. It wasn't without its stress, but it was beautiful. And I think that she had the wedding of her dreams. So, anyways, that's what I've been doing this summer. And let's see. So, as far as living the big stuff goes on this particular Substack, I decided to pretty much stop writing my blog on my website and post my blog here on Substack and start to build community around people in midlife. Typically, I've always worked with women, but I am not just I'm not just going to make this Substack community about women, but more about all of us who are going through transitions and changes and rediscovering ourselves in midlife. I've been writing and talking about this for a really long time in my course and my retreat, my What Now course and retreat that I do usually one to three times per year, a women's retreat. But I've been writing about this idea of what it means to reinvent ourselves and really reveal, which I love that word, reveal who we are at this juncture of our lives. And sometimes we go through these midlife changes in our 40s, our 50s, our 60s, our 70s, our 80s. And we go through them, but we always, when we go through them, there's a sense of unease that happens with us. Something's feeling uneasy. We're feeling perhaps discontented, or we're feeling our anxiety rise, or maybe we don't even know why we're having these feelings, but sometimes it happens because we go through some kind of crisis, or we're just going through a change and we know there's something more for us. But at this juncture, when you feel this way, a lot of times what you need to be asking really is, who are you now? I mean, we all go through life and we just build our lives, don't we? Like, we just start in our 20s, we start a career, or, go in a direction. We might not even know why we're doing it. We might just have fallen into it. And then we, maybe build a family, build a partnership with somebody. And it all requires us to put a lot of energy forward to build that life. But then we get to this point in midlife where we're wondering, really, that big question, who am I now after this life I've lived? So I thought it might be really fun to do a series for you called the 7 R's of Rediscovering Yourself in Midlife. And the 7 R's are rupture, recover, release, reevaluate, repair, remember, and reimagine. This is just a framework that I'm going to be using to talk about. Perhaps even I'll weave in the arc of the hero's journey, which is what I did in my latest book, From Heartbreak to Wholeness, The Hero's Journey to Joy. So I wanted to spend some time with you today just talking about the first two of those R's of rediscovering yourself in midlife, which would be rupture and recover. When we talk about rupture, we talk about that event that has completely changed everything in our lives. And that could be a complete disruption. It could be even a more silent disruption. It might mean that you've gone through a divorce. It might mean that you've gotten news of your health that puts you in a bit of an identity crisis or a crisis, a health crisis. It might mean that your aging parents are requiring more of you and you're trying to figure that out. It could mean that you've gone through a loss of a loved one, a spouse, or a loved one of some kind of big loss. It could even be something as subtle but big as your nest emptying. You have this full life, this full household, and then suddenly everyone seems like they're gone. They're gone in their own direction. That can oftentimes put us in that unsettled place of, asking that question, who am I now? Who am I now when I'm not a mom taking care of all these kids? Who am I now when I'm not a spouse of a person that I've been with for years and years and years? Who am I now that I find out that I'm not healthy? If you always thought of yourself as a certain kind of person, perhaps your ego, like all of our egos, has identified with some aspect of something that you do. And we all do that. That's what we do with having an ego. But suddenly that changes. And I always remember this incredible Wayne Dyer quote that said, when you are what you do, when you don't, you aren't. It's probably one of my all-time most impactful favorite quotes of my life. I remember going through a crisis after having my second child. I had a business in graphic design and she was born, and I suddenly realized that life was gonna be totally different with this child in the picture because she wasn't altogether always healthy. The first child was always bringing home a cold or virus, and so Kenna was catching those colds and viruses from Jazz, and then I'd have to stay home and not have daycare and not have help with the kids. And I suddenly realized that nobody's life was really at the highest level of quality that I wanted us to be living at. So I realized that I needed to close down my business and to stay at home for a time with the kids. So because I was in my late 20s, early 30s, I was highly wrapped up in my identity and my career, super wrapped up in my identity. So when I let that go and I suddenly was a stay at home mom, I was realizing, wow, I don't know who I am. Like, who am I now that I've gone from, meetings and, proposals to making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches? And that quote, when you are what you do, when you don't, you aren't, really stood out for me and really helped me. It really helped me understand that I am not the sum of all that I do. I am who I am. And I started to understand that I was developing myself in a different capacity, in a more feminine capacity, in a role that was um, going to be a more of a support role to my family. So also I went through, of course, a huge identity crisis when I lost my husband, Richard. I really didn't know who I was outside of being married and being joined with him in all aspects of life. So these are the kinds of things that create that rupture, that disruption, that shattering of the life that you knew, the shattering of the identity. And this is a process. This is a process that you enter into. It's a transformation that you enter into. In my book, From Heartbreak to Wholeness, I talk about how when you begin this process, this transformation, that you really have to prepare yourself for the journey. And that's where the second R of recover comes from. Is how do you get your footing? How do you get your feet on the ground when you're going through this major transformation of your life, this major change? And what you have to think of is how can you recover in the present moment? Because, of course, when you're going through any kind of loss, even the loss of a business, or as I described earlier, you're going to be in a form of grief. And grief is also a journey. It's a part of your journey of recovery. So you have to find a way to get your feet, get yourself landed in a space where you're preparing for this journey of grief, where you can recover and get your footing from this huge change that you're in, this huge transition that has knocked you off your feet, literally, like knocked you down, perhaps made you feel very scared. I just spoke to a woman the other day who I'm going to be doing some grief coaching with, and she said that she's going through a divorce and a huge loss for her, like the loss of her person that she really, really deeply loves. And she is really in so much fear. And she talked about the three different kinds of fear that she was feeling, fear of, can I do this? Can I go through loss again? Because it's the second time that she's gone through great loss from a marriage in her lifetime. Can I do this? And the, second thing that came up for her is the fear of being alone, and that's a big one. That's always a really huge one for anyone who has lost, a spouse through divorce or through loss, through death. It's a big one to ask, like, "Who am I outside of this marriage, and how do I live this life, this new single life of alone?" Especially for people who are in midlife. Um, it's you're not the same and you know it. You're different. You're probably a lot way wiser, and there's a different kind of beauty about any kind of man or woman who's aging that comes with that wisdom. But it doesn't necessarily feel like the most secure time in your life to be out, like, searching for a new partner, for say. And it's certainly, I always encourage people who are in grief not to do that anyways. I mean, it really just depends on who you are, and sometimes there's a real deep need for survival that comes from needing to have companionship, and that's totally fine. But I always counsel people, don't get into a real serious relationship right when you're going through grief, because as you recover, you really need to create the inner space, that inner space to heal and be in that cocoon for a while, that cocoon where you're just only healing. So you want to, I don't like to say isolate yourself, but maybe there's a time for just not being so busy, for allowing yourself the time and space, and the self compassion that grows from having the space to heal. You also have to allow your nervous system to regulate. And this is really, really hard, going through any huge change and transition. This is a hard thing to accommodate your body by regulating your nervous system. It takes doing lots of things, lots of self care, but also the inner calm that comes from um, allowing yourself to be in quiet, allowing yourself to have your tears, your rage, um, allowing yourself to emote all that's wrapped up in a big whirlwind of ball of anxiety inside you. And, grief is, I always like to think of grief as a friend in this time, because grief comes, and if you allow it, it comes to help heal you. This is how we get back to, peace in the present moment, when we allow ourselves to be with ourselves, and with ourselves meaning where you are, not trying to fix yourself, not trying to move out of grief too fast, not trying to um, distract yourself from what is present. And kind of the best way to do that is stillness. It's being in stillness, um, allowing your body to show you, allowing your body to teach you how to grieve, allowing yourself the space to recover and heal. And a lot of people do feel that they are just in survival mode initially in this recovery phase of any critical piece. I've seen people go through the loss of identity and their health by getting the news of cancer, and I've watched them and been present with them as part of that is letting go of who they thought they were. I mean, they thought they were this healthy person, and then suddenly they get that news and they have to suddenly realize and adjust to what it means to now identify with being an unhealthy person. And a lot of people resist that. They get in denial of that. And that's okay. You don't want to succumb. You don't want to succumb to the health news. Hi, Michelle. Hi, Sayer. Hi, good to see you. Oh my gosh, I haven't seen Michelle. I haven't seen you in so long. It's good to see you here. Um, and Sayer, I've seen thank you for being here. Not a lot of people are here today, but maybe they'll be watching the replay, but I thank you for showing up live when you can. Yeah, I've just been talking about reinvention and what it means to go through the rupture of your identity, the disrupting event that disrupts your identity. And then I've been talking about recovery and recovery being creating the space, preparing for the journey in a lot of ways of healing and creating the space for healing. Well, Sayer, you've been here for quite a while. Do you have any questions for me? Or do you guys want to say hi? Um, just so I have something to respond to, it'd be great if you have any kind of question. I don't know if that's something I have to turn on. Maybe I have to turn this on. Questions, chat, people. So, anyways, I've enjoyed talking with you today about the first 2 R's of the 7 R's of reinventing yourself in midlife. And yeah, and I just hope that you enjoy this broadcast and come back again. I'll be doing this once a week for a while, and we'll be talking about the next 2 R's and the 7 R's of reinventing. And it'll be fun. So thanks. Come back again. See you soon. Bye.